Welcome back to Breathing is Highly Dangerous. I would like to thank you all, everyone that has watched, everyone that will watch, everyone that has listened, everyone that will listen. I'm going to be speaking about the death penalty. It's going to be very quick, so I'll get into it very quickly. This first part, and then I'll get into the second half, wherever that leads into. As I've stated before, what natural power does one man have over another that they can then decide how valuable your life is in terms of the time that you deserve, and when time should be taken away from you, when time should be given to you, what punishment they're able to give you. And this is all considering those that those that are absent of God. So the fact that humans have the ability to take another's life, when they do, when they have that, it's not even a governmental authority. It's a strength. If you're able to kill somebody, or you have a skill that would make you more able to kill somebody, why would you then use that to harm someone rather than help them? And this is I'm considering someone that's purely innocent, or not even purely innocent. It's someone that's not causing a threat to you, immediate threat. In terms of the death penalty, you've already spent this time taking them into the system. So the only reason death penalty is even seen as an option is for convenience, so they don't have to pay for this person for the rest of their life. Because if the death penalty is given to people that commit heinous acts that are deemed as heinous or societally heinous, and that has left enough of a mark on its victim in terms of trauma or death upon a victim, or multiple deaths over many victims, or multiple traumas over many victims. That's just trying to justify their death with one other death, when those deaths will never be justified if they were innocent and the person being charged is on death. There's many variables, but we're considering someone that is on death row, that is reasonably responsible and is reasonably proven beyond reasonable doubt. And not just in terms of court system, but in terms of actual facts and evidence that have been presented, and that anyone could reliably say that this person committed this act. This person admits to it and is being honest about it. So all those factors have to be made certain of, right? And that's something I really think in depth about, because before you take someone's life, which would be the means to all of the end for me, like the very last option I would ever consider in terms of a way to correct someone, because death is not correction, death is absolution. So personally, I don't see anywhere that, the death penalty, if you are someone that has morals, if you are someone that doesn't believe in murder, is against murder, you cannot then go on and say you are okay with the death penalty, because that's hypocritic. It's immoral. And that if you consider yourself a person with morals, and you tend to uphold, and you intend to uphold them, then let you know right now, if you believe the death penalty is a viable option, then you are immoral. And if you're okay with that, then you're okay with that. But then you cannot then go on and say you are completely unmorally tainted. So yeah, that just goes to if you're immoral if you believe the death penalty is a viable option. You should not be able to take life of another person that is not an immediate threat to you or to anyone else or someone you care about. It's hard to talk about. I mean, I don't think I'm as good as a communicator as I want to be, you know. In terms of speaking out loud, in my head I have all my thoughts, and when I talk to myself I can correct myself quickly, but when it's being put out there, when I'm actually trying to share something, that's when I find myself needing to correct myself more than normal. So I don't know if I explained exactly what I was meaning. I'm trying to We'll go on. So immorality is, I believe, is not at all subjective. There's only objective morality, and then people put their own subjectivities onto morality. And this is especially considering it in a pragmatic context, and that's really what I could describe as my mind is like. Yeah. I only consider what can happen or will happen, and that's based on a spectrum of things. So when you expecting the result that is not possible with the actions that are taking place, then that's just nonsense, foolishness, and stupidity, quite honestly. Especially today, that's really concerning. The nature of most countries are either for government or not for government. So there's like it's always like a bipartite practice, and that's an issue, because if there's not a right answer on either of those sides, because on either of those sides there's multiple groups that disagree with each other, so it's not actually two groups, it's two groups of thousands of other groups. So you're correcting the other side, and you all come together just to come against this side, but then you have criticisms of your own side, which is good, which is taking an introspective look and holding yourselves accountable. However, if you're still using impudency when for your own side, when the other side is doing well, but you don't acknowledge that, it's insane to me that you could understand the wrong on one side, but still choose to, like, the lesser of two evils. There's not only two options, there's a third option, which is none. Why would you choose the lesser of two evils when both sides contain evil? You don't have to make a choice. Well, yes you do, you have to make a choice, but not making a choice is a choice in itself. Not choosing one of these options is a choice. So if you're allergic to something, if you're allergic to, like, I take myself for example. I have the choice either between a peanut butter sandwich or a hamburger with sesame seed bun. Those are the two options that I've got when I'm going to this banquet. I'm not choosing either. I'm allergic to both tree nuts and sesame seeds and multiple other grains. I'm not going to put myself at risk just to satisfy a moment of hunger that is ultimately going to cause harm to me and make me uncomfortable for a long period of time. Then that is maybe my control may be out of my hands, because then someone else might have to nurture me if I have that person in my life, and someone that cares enough to support getting me back to health. And if not, then I have to take care of myself. But I put myself in that position by choosing one of those things that I knew was going to affect me negatively. So therefore, you don't make a choice and eat later. Find something, go home, cook myself something when I know I don't have any of those items in my house, or go to the store, buy it. It's quite simple. And I think, and it's not I think, I know that, and I've mentioned this before, there's an extreme push towards the extinguishing of individuality. So we're losing our collectivism, we're losing our diversity. In terms of thought, they're trying to control what you can say, and they're trying to control what it's okay to think. And things that, and that's where you cannot control someone's mind. As much as you want to give someone the authority to do so, or as much as one may see, or and if that is apparent in society today, you're having tech companies pushed by people to remove people from their site because they say something that lots of people don't want. If you're lying, tell other people they're lying and prove that they're lying, and let them keep lying to you. The more you hear lies, that's not true, that the more you hear lies, the more you start to believe them. The more you hear lies and don't search out for the truth, is the more you that's indicative of how much you care. If you know someone lies all the time, either you're going to stop listening to them, or you're going to vet everything they say, rather than tell them to shut up, because you don't have that control. These private companies have their control, or public companies that are private still in their own way. They have control, and that's perfectly fair. They get to remove them from their site. But when you are telling people that you are nonpartisan or bipartisan, and you do this to appease a group on one side, and you don't do the same for the other, then that shows where your members lie. And you can no longer call well, you can, but it would be untrue. So now you're lying just for a paycheck, so the other people will continue to use your site, which I don't completely understand. Before social media's got political with all these wokeness campaigns and all this such, I was not much of a fan anyway. I used it strictly for communication with people, which I don't do often anyway, and I'm bad at staying in communication in this digital age. The digital age is not meant for me in terms of way I communicate with people, in terms of verbal communication. Through art, I think it's the most wonderful things that don't need or can be interpreted that in person will be interpreted differently through people, and that's the most wonderful thing. Art is the only thing, and media, and in terms of art media forms, because you only get in truth from one perspective wherever you are. So if you're on a particular article, you're getting information, not truth. You're getting information based on one person's perspective, or however many people contribute to that article, and then go onto websites, however many people contribute to the website. You're getting all these different perspectives, but when you zoom in, a sentence is going to be formed by one person. And if it's not formed by one person, then one person contributed to these words within this sentence. So everything is an individual perspective, and you agree on the perspective is still unique, but you're coming from the same page rather than because the thing about originality and individualism is everything is naturally, everyone is born special, right? Because you were born you, not someone else. Even twins, understand it. You're not the same person. It's not like you split into two, and you're not splitting yourself into, you don't have the same mind. So the way you see the world is based on your experiences, and no one ever will have the same experience as another person. The same events can happen in a similar manner, but you will always experience the same event differently. And that's a fact, and that's the literal sense of that. But once you get into the things that we generalize about, like a concert, you tell someone, you say you've been to this concert, and then you telling someone else, no, you haven't been to the concert, because you haven't been to a concert because you didn't go to this concert. It's like, wait, no, it's still a I know it wasn't the same artist, but I did go to a concert. It's the venues there, the musicians, the lights, techniques. It was at this venue, right? It's like, yeah, I went there too. The setup, it was a different artist, so you didn't go to a concert. So when people, and that's a really good example of how people are cutting and splicing politics and knowledge and information. Is they're saying it's not the same when it's clearly very similar, and they're removing the inherent individuality of the fact that you're a different person experiencing different things, and they're trying to conflate that with the idea of expand that to everything, which is upsetting and difficult for people that don't want to abide by that. Because I don't. And this is what I'm hoping to find people that are similar to me, that don't give any care to what the world is trying to change, and what society is trying to deem as tolerable. I don't care. Okay, that's not true. I will not abide by things that I know are destructive in nature, that someone else is telling me to do. I will not relinquish my freedoms and my autonomy, my choice, for convenience. Because you say, oh, I can do this for you. If there is any part in that is going to hurt me, and I can do it myself or with another group of people without being hurt, that's the way I'm going to go. I do not have to choose to be helped by you. And the fact of the matter, you transition this same idea to the healthcare system. When you are forced to pay for healthcare, maybe you don't go to a doctor. For emergencies, it's insurance. Everyone needs it. Or you get fined. And I heard recently, I don't know if that's been repealed in America, for the non-fine, but the Affordable Care, some people are calling the Unaffordable Care Act. That's funny. The Affordable Care Act is being re-implemented, and all the fines coming back. I personally am someone that takes pretty good care of my health. I understand emergencies and things, though emergencies you don't have control of anyway. But why would I pay for something that I'm not using and have not used for the quarter century I've been on this earth, except in my youth? Yeah, very little, before I had control over whether I could pay for insurance or not. So now that I have knowledge, kids, for children, yes. For the elderly, yes, I understand. For someone that can take care of themselves, that can avoid certain things that will contribute to a downfall in their health, they should have more choices available to what they need, understanding what they need when no one else is providing for them but themselves. And then they're taking care of those children and the elderly too. The government is not in your household. So how are you letting the government tell you what you can and cannot do with the money that you earn for your household to provide for them? This is beyond ridiculous where we are in this world today as a people. And the fact that people see a benefit, there's a benefit in it, certainly. The benefit in realizing that a lot of people are going to destroy themselves and destroy the world in ways that they aren't predicting. And you need nothing but seeing the world in front of you, experiencing the world to understand that. You need no book. You need no one to tell you. All you need to do is go outside and look. Be in people's houses and look. Have conversations with people and look. All these things I've been saying are the most observable, objectively observable, and subjectively. It's subjective because I'm myself. But in terms of the way I'm viewing it, it's objective because I'm just giving information. And what I think of it, which is where the subjectivity comes in. However, I don't care who's doing wrong. If you're doing wrong, you're doing wrong. I don't care who's doing right. If you're doing right, you're doing right. You're going to get your praise and you are going to get your criticism. And I'm willing to do that for anyone. If you do something righteous, if you do something terrible, I'm going to notice that. Whether or not I tell you, it doesn't change the fact. It doesn't change the fact of what happens. I don't care. I don't feel anything about what you do. I understand what you do, and I will either thank you or I will criticize it or not acknowledge you in my space. I'd rather much praise you because that's if you're not hurting anything, then you're doing right. But you have to know. But doing nothing is not hurting thing, because you could be hurting something or yourself in the long run. So laziness, making a mistake in action, trying to do the right thing, intending to do the right thing, versus being lazy and doing nothing, which one's more harmful? Because physically, you could injure someone while doing your mistake, while intending to do right, versus doing nothing and no one gets anywhere. And versus intending actions to purposely hurt people. Which one's the worst? Of course, intending to hurt people. But if your mistakes hurt people with intending to do right, I acknowledge your intention to do the correct thing. I'm also acknowledging the people that you hurt, and you will be held accountable. Even if you wind up doing right, I'm going to praise you for the work that you've done, but also recognize the people that you hurt, and I hope that you recognize that and are intending to fix that every day. But that's not something I'm going to continue to hold over your head. It's event by event. Whatever you did most recently is the thing I will consider most forwardly. I will just acknowledge that in my head, not acknowledge it to you or bring it up to you continually if I'm not seeing those actions presenting themselves, or I'm not seeing those actions prevalent in my observation. If those things are no longer if those mistakes are no longer mistakes you made, there's no reason for me to consider you the same person if you're no longer making those mistakes. And that goes into correction. Can you self-correct, or do you need someone to help you correct? And how much time will that take? And when you personally think you've corrected, and then you relapse or make a mistake again, will you acknowledge that you need correction again if someone doesn't see it first? or does someone have to see it before you start the correction again? So those are all moral and personal, highly personal thoughts to have about, are you only acknowledging your mistakes when other people witness it as well, or are you acknowledging before someone else does to correct yourself first? Like misspeaking. In a sense, if you, I do this all the time. There's a perfect example is whenever I realize I've said something that I didn't want to, it didn't say come out exactly what I wanted, which is a mistake in speech. I'll recant it. I'll say, I mean, like intentionally, it's like I actually mean, like people do this, and I'll restate what I'm saying in a different way. And I'll correct myself before someone else has the opportunity to. Not that I'm not willing to be corrected. I'm willing to be corrected, but I'm self-correcting first, because that is my style. That I'm aware of when I make mistakes, and I do it, I correct them quickly, even if you don't believe I made a mistake in my speech. Because I'm not as great as a communicator as I'd like to be, or as I thought I was. Even recently, as I thought I was, because as I've been editing these podcasts, I realize, I truly think I need the interaction with someone else, because talking to myself just doesn't do it for me anymore. I've done it too long, so people are now needed for me to communicate exactly what I want to say. And even then, I'll still make mistakes, but I believe I'm better at communicating important and intense topics when I understand what they're understanding, and to get that energy is just when two people come together or a group of people come together, there's just more potential energy in the room, and that's just a fact of the matter, and it's quite excellent. And yeah, so. But if someone, going back to the speech, I'll self-correct myself. But if someone realizes I made a mistake and I correct myself before they're able to bring it up, this happened to me the other day while I was in a discussion. I corrected myself and I went on speaking and finished my statement. Then the person addressed the mistake I made, and I said, "What are you speaking about?" And he's like, "You said this, but." I did not finish completing that statement because that's not what I meant. I corrected myself and said this. And then they kept going in and trying to prove a point against the mistake I made with my speech when I corrected myself before they responded. So is that a problem with my communication, or is that a problem with their listening? And I believe that to be a very intense problem within society is a lot of teaching. People like to give information, but they're not willing to accept information. You're willing to give someone what you want them to hear, but you're not willing to hear back from them. And that's something we all need practice in. We all need practice in, myself included. If it's something you care about, because if you're willing to, if someone's willing to give their time to listen to you, and you don't have the decency to give them back, give them your time to listen to them, that is you lost respect automatically, because it's disrespectful to take something from someone that they can't get back and not give them anything. You stole their time. Yes, they may have learned something, but they aren't able to explain the way they received it. If it's a conversation, don't call it a conversation. Call it disparagement. Don't say we need to have a conversation. These conversations need to be had. You don't want to have a conversation. You want to be heard and not listened, and not listen. You want to be listened to. You do not want to listen. You hardly want to hear. Don't give voices to that sort of ideology. Do you not recognize the mistakes in your own words, in your own actions? So you're willing to, you're able to point out these mistakes, but when they point out yours, you don't do an introspective look and see the problems with your own conduct. And that's very insincere of you, and very immature and childlike. And these are things that people point out in the nature of the way you present yourself publicly, and you don't address that or try to correct it. Or the voices that are in your group that are trying to correct that behavior, you then you then point your finger at them. You're part of the problem. You're giving them room to fight against us. Why are you fighting against each other when we're both on the same plane? Plane in terms of latitude, not in terms of plane in terms of space. If you're fighting a war and your enemy is above you, why are you shooting to your side? Yeah, you're standing shoulder to shoulder. You're standing shoulder to shoulder. It's uncomfortable. Maybe the breath stinks. The stepping on your toes. The war is uncomfortable, but we're fighting together. Look above you. Look at the enemy that's going to start raining down a hellstorm onto your head. Not to the person that's touching your toes and not meaning to hurt you, or maybe they are, and they're poking fun. And that's immaturity on their part. So distance yourself from that and focus on the threat. Focus on the issue. We keep distracting ourselves, myself included. We distract ourselves and we don't realize that time where they're distracted, the enemy has a time to create a new tactic when they get to visualize us and see the moves we're making and to see which direction we're coming from, see what weapons we're using, and they get to prepare themselves when we should be preparing ourselves the entire time. We should be observing them. But we've been in observing too long. We know the ways. They're just switching up the tactics and the order of which they have them in. They can't create something new. The only thing they're going to be able to create new is new technology, not new methods of which they will use the weapons. They're going to use them against us. So we all have that expectation. The only thing we don't know is when and what form it's going to take. But we know it's directed at us, and we know it's going to happen. So if we are certain of these things, then we need to prepare for all options at all times. That means we need to stop distracting ourselves, stop letting ourselves get distracted, stop letting ourselves be manipulated. That's my rant for today. I will come back with a more concise topic on another day. Thank you for listening. This has been a shorter one. Please share, like, share, subscribe, and go and join me at any time you want. Respond, message me, and tell me what you want to hear about and talk about. I'll be having more guests on soon. Hopefully, I'm messaging people right now to get them on, because as much as I love doing it by myself and being able to talk about stuff at any moment about anything, it's not the same. I like talking to people. All right, be blessed, stay blessed, and I will see you all later.